Yo, what is going on? My break into the future comrades, whatever we'll create a nickname somehow. But this is your founder, your host, Joshua Taylor. We have a very special guest, founder of Crowdie Advisors, Maureen. What is up? How are you doing today?
Hey, Joshua, I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. Hey, it's Friday, but every day
Right,
is
right.
Friday in crypto land.
Yeah.
Doing good. Blessed to be here. Blessed to have you on the show today. You know how we do it. Just very cool conversations. Just helping everybody break into the future, put them on game. Just first, the people want to know who you are, your background, anything you want to share with us, and then we'll just have fun.
Sure. So, Maureen Murat, and my business is called Crowdie Advisors, Crowdie. And so, Crowdie Advisors started out as a just a consulting company to help people who wanted to raise money via equity crowdfunding and equity and debt crowdfunding, because those fall under SEC exemptions. But then as I started, figuring out like who my clients would be, et cetera, I came across people. This was back in 2016.
Mm.
Uh, where I was looking for clients, and someone said to me at some event, and I wish I remember this person because I should probably thank them at this point. That like, why would I do crowdfunding with all that paperwork, et cetera, when I could just do an ICO? And I was like, what is that? I have never heard of what an ICO was. So I, had to do some digging, and as they say, you just kind of jump in and it turns into like a black hole, and you
Yeah.
can't help but to keep looking for for more. And at the time, there was so much information coming out. It was a lot. It was overwhelming, in some respects, but also very riveting, very interesting. So it kind of caught my attention. And then what really, I guess, caught my attention the most was, I guess, the legal aspects of it, because, I'm an attorney, and I felt like there were so many legal issues that weren't being addressed. And, the hype was kind of overshadowing some of those issues. So I thought, okay, well, I won't join the hype. I'll be the practical voice, in this conversation, or try to be.
Yeah.
And, but still being excited about it, right? I know a lot of times when people hear, oh, they're an attorney, oh, they're just going to tell me no, and that's not true. That's not true. We're not, negative Nancy's, not everyone. So anyway, so that's how I kind of got into crypto. And then, as things evolved, we started looking into ways of how crypto and crowdfunding could be complementary. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now. We do have a masterclass where we talk about crowdfunding, but then we incorporate crypto and incorporate blockchain technology into the course. We have a workbook that I don't have right here, but that also talks about it if you can't come to the class. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice. What led you to be an attorney?
Oh, that's a good question. I wanted to be an OBGYN nurse
Oh,
before. And I was on that track. But I started a part-time job while I was in college. I started a part-time job at an attorney's office,
mm,
and she was doing bankruptcy. And initially I was just mailing out her mailers. This is when attorneys used to mail out those glossy, big, mailing envelopes and brochures and all that. So we would get lists of people who had just filed bankruptcy and send those mailers out to them. But then one of her paralegals was fired, and she asked me, to do more work. And so to do more substantive work, I should say. And so I was like, oh, I kind of like this, especially because of the type of people we're helping. When you're in bankruptcy, you're in a compromised position. You don't have a lot of money. You're stressed. Life is just not very easy at that moment. So to be able to help people kind of, get from under that cloud, that was really helpful. And that kind of made me think, okay, well, my goal is to always be able to do something that would help someone, right? And I was like, well, maybe I should go to law school instead. So that's kind of how that kind of turned. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just do that. And it worked out.
mm, yeah, seems like it.
Yeah. I mean, it was a journey, but it worked out.
Yeah. And then you got into the whole, what were you doing before the equity crowdfunding started? That whole, and then it, Yeah.
I was working as a paralegal. So I went to school at night and worked as a paralegal during the day.
Mm.
And then I graduated law school in 2016.
Oh.
So I graduated May. I started my business in August.
Mm.
By then, I thought I was going to be like a clerk or something for, you know, a judge at
Which
one of the
court?
courts all over the country, because that's kind of what you're told to do, right? After law school, you should clerk
It's a
or get
good
a job
path.
at a firm. Huh?
Like, it's a good path, right?
Right, right.
A lot
That's
of
the path.
options. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of put you on. But I mean, and generally you apply for clerkships a year before you actually go, right? So I had applied in 2015
Mhm.
for clerkships all over
Mhm.
Tennessee, Oklahoma, places I had never seen myself, living. But
Yeah.
I thought, okay, well, I just need to get one so that I could, be validated in a way. And I didn't get a clerkship, not one, even though I had good grades, even though I had experience. Even though some of my professors actually were able to talk to certain people to get me to get in on interviews and all that, it didn't work out. But
Yeah.
of course, initially you're like, well, what's wrong with me? But thinking back, it kind of worked out, because then it forced me to figure out like what I really wanted to do, right? Not what necessarily was expected of me.
Mhm.
So yeah, I started my business in August of 2016. And then, so I left my paralegal job to start my business.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And is
And I
you
had to study for the bar during that summer. So I just didn't want to work and do that at the same time too.
and then you just, hey, I'm gonna start a business instead.
Yeah.
And it was
Well, I mean, the way I started that business was I was supposed to actually join a startup,
mm, we
a
start,
crowdfunding startup that
you
didn't
harness
work
the
out.
crowdfunding bug,
Right.
I would say. Yeah, yeah.
It didn't work out. And I was like, well, I don't really need to do, to work with them to be doing a specific thing that I was going to do. So I was like, okay, I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
So that also kind of forced me to get myself together.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you explain to the people what Crowdie Advisors, what do you do, and how do you advise clients?
So it depends on what stage you're in. When I first started, it was all about just getting people to the point where they could put their crowdfunding campaign onto a crowdfunding platform that has to be registered with the SEC, et cetera, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
But then I started meeting people who didn't even have like some of the basics together yet
Yeah.
to get to the point where they could register. So they didn't have a business bank account yet. They hadn't registered with the state yet. They didn't have, any operating agreement. They didn't have any of those things. And so I thought, okay, well, they're not ready to go to crowdfunding. So maybe I could offer the service of helping them get that together before they could try to raise funds. So for a while, that's what I did. I focused on getting people business ready, right? And then we could talk about crowdfunding once you figured out like what your next step would be.
Yeah.
So nowadays, if you're in that position, I don't work on those matters anymore. I just refer them to friends of mine who can help you set up your LLC and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, and that's just, that's a recent change, but
Yeah.
you got to pivot sometimes.
Yeah.
And so now what I work on is helping people not only just fill out the form, which is long and it is extensive and requires a lot, but it's not just one person who fills out that form, right? You need help from a CPA, you might need help from someone to help you with marketing and things like that. So we kind of come together to create this plan so that you can not only just put your campaign on this platform, but also be able to raise the funds. Because if your campaign is on there and you don't get people to come to your page,
A waste of time.
it is honestly. And the other thing is to kind of think about strategy in terms of how much you want to raise initially, what would you raise it for, what are you offering your investors, things like that. We go over strategy and all that, as in addition to the compliance stuff.
Mm. So it's a full on consultancy
Right.
advisory shop. What? So I know with speaking with Hustle Fund Baby, he
Mhm.
was telling us that the basically crowdfunding, being able to crowdfund invest didn't become really legal until 2016. I'm correct?
Yes, correct. Until May 2016.
Wow, that's crazy. So would you say this industry's or crowdfunding space and that being available to like the public and mainstream is pretty new? Like we haven't hit like massive awareness for businesses to and new businesses to crowdfund.
Right. But I think we're on our way there,
Yeah.
especially because I think with the different platforms being able to reach more people,
Mhm.
the ability to see that, more diverse founders are raising money this way, I
Mhm.
think that has helped to kind of shine a light on how this could be something beneficial. But yes, it wasn't until May 16, 2016, and then they had to, they needed a year to figure it out. But, year over year, they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's showing, that the market is there for that kind of crowdfunding. And the just to make a distinction, because there are different types of crowdfunding,
Yeah.
but this is for debt crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding specifically. You could have done donation crowdfunding or rewards crowdfunding before May 2016, but
Mhm.
you wouldn't be necessarily investing. You would not have any ownership interest in the business. You would not have any expectation of profit,
Mhm.
right? Or return on your investment, I should say.
Like those,
Whereas before, people were just giving their money, supporting someone because
yeah,
they like the idea. So
yeah,
this gives you a piece of the pie, even though it might be small, but it's still a piece of the pie.
yeah. It's a real equity price equity round saying, hey, I'm raising $1 million. I'm giving away 10% of the company. So if that $1 million is 10%, what's 10% out of 100%? The 100% is the $10 million. So you're saying I have a $10 million valuated company,
Right.
right? And then anyone around the U.S. is like, is it only like say, hey, I guess to that point, to this law, this was a U.S. federal law, correct? Was this a
Right.
federal law? And then part two to that is how many equity and debt based crowdfunding platforms are available and like actually legitimate, like people are knowing, finding out about them.
So there are, I think the last time I looked, it was like 76 platforms
Yeah,
a couple months ago.
yeah,
But, they can't all perform at the same,
level. Yeah.
level, right? But there are like the top five, right? And we see them all over the place.
Mhm.
So I think what you'll see is that more platforms will come into the space because they'll just, provide better service than the, you know, uh, um, not legendary, what do they call them? Legacy platforms.
I guess,
So their legacy, I mean, granted, they're 5, 6 years old,
yeah,
but when you think
basically,
about it,
yeah.
yeah,
People keep saying, I could do it better. I could do it better.
right. I could do it for less fees because now these legacy platforms are they charge
Oh, they make
more.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, and they, some of them, depending on what package you choose, they also have equity in your business when you put your campaign onto their platform. Yeah, 2% equity. So, it just depends. It depends on what your goal is. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's definitely evolving and it's becoming a way where not only are people raising money for their business, but it helps them with their target market, to kind of make sure that you also have validation of the product or the good or the service,
Mm.
whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
You're building community, so there's more to it than just raising the money. But although that's very important for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if you know about Product Hunt, but I feel like they should do this. Like Product
Product hunt.
Just look up
Mm-mm.
product. Everyone look up Product Hunt. So basically, you could create a product, right? And
Uh-huh.
you could launch your product on like your software product, whatever product you're creating, launch it, and all these people are like UX/UI designers, developers, enthusiasts, fans, and they just if um you get like notice, right? Like that can be really cool for like you finding product market fit. Basically, you have a product, you have the market, they find it, and like you have some type of fit or feedback, right?
Oh, okay.
So I was like, dang, they should do this where people, if I want to throw $1,000, 500 or whatever to help them people raise. Like I was like, you could do it right there. Just one example. But yeah, this is really, really interesting. This is the second crowdfunding conversation. And um, I think I've been thinking a lot about literally just several conversations. I'm not and can't stop and won't stop thinking about just democratize investing. And that's
Mm.
what crowdfunding is. And I guess my next question and what we can nerd out on is like, how do you see, okay, we're probably about like a quarter of a billion an aggregate raised of crowdfunding around those
Mm-hmm.
numbers, right? Like, and as we keep going up and up, and whenever we hit our like escape velocity in that, how does that change the investing stack overall? Like, hey, the bottom is like early stage venture capital, crowdfunding, all the way up to like, hey, I'm a public company and like I in the billions and billions of dollars. How does that change the investing landscape for like retail investors and institutional investors, like big investors for the audience?
That's a great question. So generally speaking, yes, to your point, if you're crowdfunding, you're in the early stages of the business, right? And VCs come in at the early stages too, but sometimes they don't want to come in that early, right? They want to come in later along the lines and, as you're scaling. So they want to come in, especially institutional investors want to come in on, maybe the second or third round, once it's been validated. So that's one thing. And I think the way that it will change the landscape is, in addition to having specifically Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, to raise up to $5 million, there's another type of crowdfunding, which is Reg A, and they call it Reg A Plus because it was updated, that allows you to raise up to $75 million. So in the crowdfunding world, the way you can only raise money as a private company. So if you are public, then you can't raise it under Reg CF. But it can get, on that continuum, as you mentioned, it can get you to the point, if that's one of your goals, right? To the point where, especially Reg A Plus, where you become a public company. And so sometimes our Reg A Plus raises are called mini IPOs, right? Because this is, by the time you're getting to the Reg A Plus round, you're already, your revenue is already in the millions. You already have, you've already scaled to a certain extent. You're already on the way if you want to, right? So that's one thing. Now, if you're in the middle, like between like early stage and then you're kind of like middle stage, but you're still a private company, then you have options. I think you could do Reg CF if you want and go up to the $5 million and then, decide what the percentage is, or you could, go ham and go up to, the $75 million. You don't have to raise the $75 million, right? You can raise, what you're really doing when you're raising the amounts is also taking into account what benefits you get with each type of regulation. So obviously Reg CF is a lot more limited than Reg A Plus, and Reg A Plus raises anyone can invest. Anyone can invest in Reg CF as well, but it's limited in terms of, if I am not considered what they call an accredited investor and I don't meet the threshold limits of the income or education, then I can only invest up to a certain amount per year or 5% of my income. Now, accredited investors have no limitation, right? So now if I'm in the Reg A Plus world or Reg A world, then I can give a little bit more, but I might be able to spread out more, and my, depending on how much I can afford, putting my money into a Reg A Plus business, might give more of a benefit in terms of the return on the investment, because your value is more, even though it's a little bit, if that makes sense. The value, even the valuation of that company is, 5 times what the valuation of a Reg CF company might be.
So Reg CF is up to a $5 million raise, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you're not accredited, you cannot invest in that round?
You can, but you're limited.
You're limited to how much money?
I think it's 2570 for the year, or 5% of your income, whichever is greater.
Oh, so they're trying to mitigate risk for them. Like, don't put all your money in and like have no liquidity left.
Right. They don't want you to bet the farm. They want to make sure
you can like live and your expenses and all that, right?
Right. And and that it's still risky, right? Investing in businesses is not less riskier because you do it under Reg CF or Reg A or as a VC or whatever. It's still risky however you invest. But, when it comes to the Reg CF, because of the types of investors you generally get, there are those restrictions.
Yeah, that's good that they took a lot of time to think about that, I'm guessing. Like,
Well, it depends on who you talk to. There's two
yeah,
sides to everything, right?
yeah,
It's good for the people who are very new to this and maybe need those guardrails and need some guidance. But on the other end, when you compare what an accredited investor is, that rule is older than us combined, probably. One. So what
yeah,
was $200,000, in income per year 70 years ago, whatever,
yeah.
versus
A
right
lot,
now,
a lot.
right? It
Yeah,
was a lot versus
absolutely.
right now.
Like triple the
So,
amount, probably.
yeah. So, I mean, when you account for inflation and all that, those rules should be updated. Now, they did update them. The SEC did update them back in, I think November or October, the accredited investor definition, where
Mm,
they said, in addition to having that income, meeting an income threshold or having property that is at the value of $1 million, not including your household, you can also qualify to be an accredited investor if you have certain education, like you take certain SEC exams and you have licenses,
yeah,
or like if you worked for a fund and you have employment experience or things like
like
that.
an associate or something, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it opens it a little bit. I mean, there's a little more light, right? But it still leaves a lot of people out because what's the difference between 198, $198,000 a year and $200,000 a year
Or 150, you're
or 150?
to
Right.
start, you're
Yeah.
potentially and be able to examine a business and make a decision for yourself. So let's hop into that because I think a lot of people might be asking, like, okay, what is an accredited investor? What is an accredited investor and why was that established? And what's good about that, but what's not good about that?
Yeah, so an accredited investor is someone who this was the rule before it changed last year, made $200,000 over 2 years, or 300,000 as a married couple over 2 years, 2 years in a row. I'm sorry, not over 2 years,
Yeah.
and then $1 million in assets, not including your home. So people have other types of assets, right? Like stocks and things like that. And then what they added was that you could also, I think they added 5 or 6 more things, but you could also be someone who, like I said, was an associate or something like that had employment experience.
Mhm.
You could be someone who took certain courses or educational requirements.
Mhm.
And so that accredited investor definition was supposed to, yes, maybe protect, people who weren't making that much or didn't have that kind of income or have that knowledge or experience. But it also serves to keep certain people out that have systemically been left out, right? So yes, it's good to answer your question because it does provide some guardrails and you have some ways to kind of control or at least have some guidance for people if they're looking to invest in certain things. But I think on the other side of it, it also provides an avenue to continue to leave people out, to continue to have this narrative that if you don't have money or education, you wouldn't know how to invest. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah, that's a good point, and I
yeah,
think that leads us to the now, right, and where we're
right.
going in the continual dollar raises and crowdfunding. But we saw a shift in COVID, right? We saw a shift with a lot of the not just the social things, but also the market events that have happened. So Wall Street Bets, right, which is like
Mhm.
a mega people fund in itself,
Right.
or the AMC theater price
Hmm.
action, GameStop,
GameStop.
even Hertz bankruptcy, how that flipped, and just even in cryptocurrencies, right? People basically getting their Lambos and becoming millionaires overnight,
Right.
or hey, making sound decisions, and they were in early, or they were in making investments into these tokens in a bear market, basically meaning when prices are precipitously down, a lot of red, which means prices are down. Um, so
And the
yeah,
demand is not as high, so
yeah,
that
yeah.
affects us. Yeah. Mhm.
Versus this past year, right? A lot
Right.
of new entrants into the market, a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, a lot of exuberance. Okay, this is turning a shift, right? Like this is that is like seeing more people, in my view, like, and what you're saying, right? You could be a VC if you're doing the Reg CF, like you're a venture, you're a capitalist, right? So what do you think about, what are your views as that, and then your regulation hat, your lawyer hat, like the opportunity, but also like this war, like the haves, the have nots, like kind of like the macro view, and can we like go down into like the law, like go into the textbooks of law and be like, what's really going to happen? What needs to happen, like with crypto, with crowdfunding, like really putting capital in everyone's hands. So I think that's what
Right.
we probably both care about. We both care
Mhm.
about, and then you know, um, just making a more fair. That's what equitable world means, right? Everyone has a shot, right? So how does
Right.
that happen? Like, how do you see this changing on a macro? And then we can go down and say, like, okay, this is really what I see is really how it's going to play out.
Well, I think when you think about fundamental fairness, it can't necessarily be across the board because I think you have to take into consideration, the starting point. So the starting point is that we're not all equal. We're not all even. So
Yeah,
even if you said, okay, we're going to have this one rule or one regulation and it's going to apply to everyone and
yeah,
everyone gets to take advantage of it, there are people who still won't be able to take advantage of it because they're back here. They don't even hear what's going on, up here, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So I think you to take into consideration the fact that you have to meet people where they are
yeah,
before you can bring them to the point where they can kind of be on their own and make their own decisions.
mm,
And I mean, when it comes to regulations or like overarching themes or ideas, I think the one thing that really should be at the forefront of our minds is like when we get into something or when we learn about something, what intrigued us about it, and to share that with the people we know, right?
yeah,
Sometimes people get, really good information. And, we see these memes on IG where like you'll ask someone, hey, that purse is cute or that outfit is cute. Where'd you get it from? And they don't want to tell you because they don't want you to have the same thing they have. And
yeah,
it's like, that's not the mindset that we should have. So I think a lot of times, even with some of the things we see now, like Uber or whatever, a lot of that. The only reason why I'm using Uber today is because one of my friends used it and she came out alive. She did it a couple of times. Because I was nervous at first, right?
yeah,
So I think essentially sharing what you know and what you've experienced with your community outside of like what the regs or rules say is one way to kind of get the word out.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what we're trying to do. And then in terms of like thinking about rules that would really benefit people just, at the macro level, is to also think about like if this thing costs $1, then we have to take into account that how long it takes me to make that dollar, maybe more or less time than it takes for the next person to make that dollar.
mhm,
So when they are talking about raising wages and things like that and acting like it's such a big deal, I think they're missing the one, they've never experienced not being able to make that dollar or whatever the wage is, but two, not really taking into account that even if that person makes more or is able to earn more, the they're behind because they're behind, it will take them a while to catch up to still be able to meet some of the requirements to be able to participate in some of these um, some of these products. But what I like about crypto is that it doesn't matter, right? In the sense that, yes, you do still have to have money. I'm not going to say that, right? Because how
yeah,
else are you going to make money, right?
yeah,
You do have to have money, but I think, and you do have to have access. There are plenty of our, people in our community who still don't have access to
internet,
internet, right?
right,
I live in DC, and just a mile or two away, there are plenty of people who don't have access to internet. They are still,
yeah,
having those issues.
yeah,
But but I think that, like I was saying about the accredited investor rules, how it leaves people out. In this instance, even if you're making, considerably less than an investor, than an accredited investor, like you said, if you know what your, financial responsibilities are and that you're able to to participate in this market, then you have the decision to do so. You still have to do your own research. That has never changed. There's still scams out here, y'all. Okay, these crypto projects, etc. They are still here. They are vibrant. They are everywhere. So you still have to do your own research. You still have to pay attention to what's going on in the market. You still want to, learn as much as you can, but you're not limited in the sense that just based on what you look like or just based on how much money you have in your bank account, you can't participate. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'll leave it there because I know I went on and on, but
this is for you. This is
okay.
Crowdie time. It's Crowdie crypto time.
Okay.
No, this is lit. I could go so many ways with that. There's a question I'll wait to the end to ask.
Okay.
So like if I'm a newbie, right, I'm just hearing about crypto, I've heard about Bitcoin, Doge, I'm hearing people are talking about it. People are trying to trade. Just from your expert hat as a, lawyer, crowdfunding, crypto, being in the space for a while, where should I start so I don't get into those scams? You said doing my own research. Where should I go? And just maybe I don't have a lot of money as well. I don't have a lot of, dry powder. I don't have a lot of discretionary income to be throwing at these projects. What should I do to keep up?
I mean, what's great about the internet or, the internet waves is that great and bad, right? There's a lot of good free information. There's a lot of bad free information. Yeah. But I think that some of the places to start are on YouTube. There's Block Geeks, which is, I think it's a good little way to, it's super intro level, but I like some of their videos. I've shared videos with people who have, simple questions and they have visuals and whatnot. I also listen to podcasts. There's the Tech Intersect with Tanya Evans. There is, and I know you mentioned Samson, he has a podcast called This Call Is Being Recorded, where he asks people all types of questions. And that's really interesting because the goal is not just to learn about one specific thing. I think the goal should be to learn about the whole ecosystem and to see how you fit in. Maybe you fit in as someone who would just be in there investing and buying cryptos, et cetera. But maybe you might fit in because you have some other type of skill. You have a marketing skill, you have legal skills, you have, communication skills, you're a storyteller. Because at the end of the day, when you think about these different crypto projects and these coins and all that on these exchanges, they are businesses too. They are small businesses too. Yeah. They want to make money. Yeah. You know what I mean? They might need to hire people. Yeah. They might need to partner with people. Yeah. You could be one of those people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think opening yourself up to, and following your gut too, right? Because sometimes there's stuff on the internet that you might not agree with, but I think it's important to try to get both sides of, especially on the crypto topic, because they're extremes, right? I try to stay in the middle, but I recognize and appreciate the extremes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it shows the passion behind the industry, behind the new world.
Right.
Just okay, people are really invested in this logically and emotionally.
Right.
And because it's a very new thing and very vibrant and also volatile, it comes with a lot of emotions.
It does.
Because we could be head deep in this for days on end. We're like, oh, wait, it's Saturday.
Right.
A new month passed. I didn't even realize it. It's 2023.
And I mean, for a while now, I feel like things have slowed down, even though things change a lot still. But for a while, it was news every day. And if you, I mean, even LinkedIn, I know we were talking about LinkedIn earlier. LinkedIn is also another great place to get good information.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn, everyone should have a LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Even though I believe they shouldn't have sold to Microsoft, even though it was a good acquisition, good synergies. I just think they could be so much more.
Yeah, but Microsoft is an interesting animal, right? They have a lot of. It's a what?
That's a whole different show to talk about.
Yeah. They are. So we'll leave it at that. They have their pluses, right? And they have their minuses. So, and I guess that's how conglomerates are. Yeah. You gotta they didn't make billions being nice, so.
Right. Yeah. There's someone that said, like, you can't be a billionaire being nice to everybody. And
Yeah.
it's about like how like Oprah Winfrey, ruthless, Steve Jobs, ruthless. It was just really funny. It was like real, but it was like really funny. Side note. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, this is really cool. I can ask so many questions, but I think like this is all about the future. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you, like, what do you think about the future? I know there's been like 2021 has been like the year of like regulation, like maybe not action, but talk. Like there's a lot of talk about regulation. You got, Gary Gensler, which is he's a Treasury of Secretary, right? What is he? What's his role?
I don't think is
There's
he
some
the
people that,
secretary? He might be the secretary.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gary Gensler, Janet
I feel
Yellen,
like I have to look
Janet
that up.
Yellen.
Oh, Janet Yellen. Yeah.
Yeah, all these people in
He's the chair. He's the new chair for SEC. I'm sorry,
yeah,
not
SEC
Treasury.
chair.
SEC.
Yeah, so just so people could look them up, and if they didn't know, they're
Yeah. It
always
used to be Jay Clayton up until
yes,
recently. Yeah.
yeah.
hmm
Jerome Powell, which is
hmm
the head of the Federal Reserve, right? All this talk, right? What is your perspective on just the regulation that is like beating on the door of crypto and the blockchain?
Well, I think so. Even though it sounds like this is something that's new because we get new voices every so often,
Mhm.
I think it's good to when we think back to 2017, 2018,
Mhm.
2019, 2020 kind of doesn't count for a variety of reasons, as you can imagine, even though there was a lot, but I feel like that year doesn't count. But 2018, 2019, there was a lot of talk about regulations as well, right? And even some of the some of Congress, like they came up with the Taxonomy Act,
Mhm.
version 1 and version 2 that just not getting as much traction as they would have liked.
Mhm.
States are even saying, okay, well, federal government, if you're not in on this, well, let's come up with our own laws, right?
Yeah,
Wyoming, Tennessee,
yeah, there.
Illinois, they've all come out with their own crypto type or crypto specific rules. Even the OCC, the Office of the
Control of currency.
Comptroller, yes, of
Yeah.
currency. Yeah, they have also come out with a special type of charter. Granted, they're not all well received, right? Because not all the regulators think the same. Some regulators feel like certain things should be in their wheelhouse or their jurisdiction versus others. But to answer your question in terms of like what I think the future will be, I think there'll continue to be talk because what's um, how can you have politics without a lot of talk? One, right? There's got to be a lot of talk, right? But I think that because I have attended a few hearings and I've also like watched a few hearings, I
Yeah.
think when they actually do the hearings, like Maxine Waters, she's the chair of the Financial Services Committee,
Mhm.
and they've had several hearings. So I feel like even though hearings sometimes come out to be like, okay, we did all this talk, you have all these great people come talk and tell their stories and what's next, and sometimes nothing happens.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, that's at least a step towards action, even if we don't know what the plan of action is.
Yeah.
The other issue that I have with, I guess, some of the commentary of, these people high up in government is that I think that depending on who makes a comment, so I won't make any names, they like totally miss the mark because they're not on the ground,
Totally
right?
missed the mark.
They're
Totally.
not on the ground. They're not paying attention to what's going on, where we are.
Mhm.
And they don't care either, right? They have their staff people kind of help them, put things together. And then, they may or may not take that information or feedback.
Mhm.
And, what comes out after it's gone through however many revisions could be something totally different.
Yeah.
Or, just what they feel or what they think. The issue with that is sometimes when they say something based on what they think or what they feel, it like automatically affects the community or the market
Triple.
in some
Yeah.
yeah in
Mhm.
some form or fashion. So I think that we should all be, even celebrities do that, right? Everyone I think should be a little more careful about like how your words affect some of these things. And, words matter. I know a lot of times it's like, oh, you could just say it, fake it till you make it, blah, blah. No, I feel like in this, scenario, there's no faking. You cannot fake it till you make it. You will not make it, right? So I just feel like, we have to be really careful. I'm sorry.
I was saying crypto's rough. It's real.
It
It's
is. It
wild
is.
now. Yeah.
And crypto, I mean, is really crypto doesn't stand on its own. Crypto really is um, the crutch under crypto is entrepreneurship,
Mm.
and that is hard. However you want to slice it,
Yeah.
it is a tough existence. Whether that's your full time thing, whether you're doing it, with the day job and a part, and doing that on the side, or however you're doing it, it's a lot. And so, in addition to really focusing on like what the rules and regs would be around how cryptos would be determined or seen, or like how SEC is working with, or not working with, but their case against Ripple and all these things, like these things are important to your business, but you're still running a business. There's so many other things that are also very important that you have to keep your mind on. So I feel like when when we think about the future of crypto, we have to think about the future of business, the future of finance. We were talking about that, the future of like all the different things that affect our pockets that we don't think about because we only think about like our debit card or, or anything like that. All these things that I'm, saying affect our pockets in some form or fashion, and we have to be mindful of that. And I know that regulations, some people say they want bright line rules, et cetera. And I think that depending on what the rule says, having something that's like strict may not be beneficial, right? You kind of want, especially in this world, I think you want some flexibility. You want some room. Not to say that, you could just be crossing over the line back and forth and, making up stuff as you go along. But still, I think some flexibility is helpful. And that just means that you as the company or the business or, the creator of this project has to just be mindful of those things. But that's okay. If you have to do a little extra work, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to figure it out. You're going to have to. So.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I was just thinking, like, excuse me, like crypto. There's like 9,000 coins approximately out
Is
there.
that much now already? I thought.
It's been like that for a while. If you look at
I
coinmarketcap.com
should. Yeah.
or if you look at coingecko.com for the audience as well.
That must have been over the last year though, because the last time I
And we
looked, it was like 4,000,
we
5,000.
spiked in this bull market, right? When there's hype, people want to jump on. And so I'm saying that because they're like basically that's like 9,000 startups, right? Besides like Bitcoin, you could say, in like the top, I mean, they're just larger startups like Ethereum, Cardano.
Bitcoin is not even a startup, right?
Bitcoin is just, they were the beginning of,
right.
They're the revolution. Satoshi is our modern day Martin Luther, all this stuff.
Right.
So, it's like you were saying, entrepreneurship is the foundation of cryptocurrencies, and tokenomics and like the new way we do business, and everyone having some type of currency if you can create value, right? What is valuable? So I could go so many ways because I think the law and regulation and what is formally the formal constructs of business is evolving. But if you're creating a new world, we have to set frameworks for this new world. So we could go into DAOs, Ripple. We could do another thing about Ripple. That would be cool. Which is just XRP. You can look it up. But in terms of forming a business, can we talk about DAOs for a second?
Sure.
And that construct around cryptos, because I know a company like Shapeshift just went fully decentralized. Can we talk about DAOs and what do you know about DAOs with your expertise?
So I do not have necessarily expertise in DAOs. DAO stands for, I always say automatic, but it's decentralized autonomous organizations.
Yeah.
And As I understand them, the structure is really, when we think about democratizing and, providing access, that's what that structure is supposed to do in terms of making sure that, there's not this middle person or central authority, if you will, calling the shots or having to go through that central authority to do anything. One thing that I think is interesting to note, just like you made mention of Shapeshift, is that it doesn't start out as a DAO, right? It starts out as very centralized, and they have to create the protocols and the rules around it so that when it does become fully decentralized, it doesn't like blow up like, the autonomous cars that are, hitting Black people because they can't recognize us. So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that example, but you see what I'm saying, right? That so that it doesn't go crazy and then, there are not these parameters. So, so when you think about a business who says that they want to become a DAO, or that they are a DAO or they're working towards that, I think it's commendable to say, you know what, I'm going to start out. Yes, it's going to be highly centralized. Yes, we're going to have to create all these rules, have a team, et cetera, to the point that, then it will, as it grows or scales, it will become something that kind of operates on its own, but that the different protocols or rules that we've applied to it, will be distributed and applied fairly across the board. I mean, that's the goal, right? Whether it happens or not is another story. We haven't, fully experienced it, right? But I think the goal is commendable, and like the MakerDAO found, folks, that I think is very commendable. But they're also,
they've
say
been
that
around
again?
for a while.
Yeah, they
MakerDAO
have.
is decentralized, but Please Your DAO is still around as well. Man.
So it's interesting. It's super
It is.
interesting. But I think to your point, we've been saying this, and I'll say it again, they're still businesses, right? They're still, even on when they become, fully decentralized, they're still earning, as a result of the transactions and things like that occur. So nobody's, they're not fully like altruistic about this, because they're still small businesses. And honestly, you can make money, be a small business, and still help people and be fine. Like, that's okay. That's totally okay. But let's call it what it is.
Let's call a spade a spade.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Dang, I know you're passionate about the equity, crowdfunding, and of course crypto as well, because it is a centerpiece of that, and even much so probably extension of that. What do you see the crypto and crowdfunding world being in like 5 years? Where do you see us?
I think more people will use crypto as as either a perk or a part of their crowdfunding campaign. I think before, when we were thinking about, we were talking about tokenomics before, it wasn't clear like what that token or what that coin or whatever could represent, if not for, necessarily a financial transaction or a data type of transaction. But I think if you add the crowdfunding component to it, it's a small business who's trying to raise funds. Whether they're blockchain based or not is something else, because, obviously you can have a non-blockchain based business and still issue tokens, right? Because there's no, you don't have a coin native to a blockchain, et cetera. But figuring out what that token could represent. I mean, we've seen projects where the token could represent fractional ownership of real estate. It's it's growing. The idea around it is growing and getting traction. But I think you can also look at, the token. Also, we've seen projects where the token represents, or the coin represents, ownership interest in the business. Or you can see also how it might represent maybe access to an ecosystem. It really depends on your business structure, right? It could also, and then at the very end, it could also, be deemed as a means to, go onto a secondary exchange and, and sell your interest or sell your coins or tokens, at a number more than what you got it at. Because, at the end of the day, if you're investing, you want a return on your investment. You're not investing because it's fun, or cute or whatever. You're investing because you want a return. Now, how that return comes about, it's a lot of it is up to the company, the issuer, the company that is issuing this ownership interest in the business. But it's a way to also, help communities come out of the shadows, if you will, of not necessarily knowing about investments and things like that. And kind of, you're kind of taking them with you. Like, you love this product, be a part owner within this product as well. Another type of crowdfunding that we don't talk about is royalties / revenue sharing. So when it comes to artists and people who are creating all types of stuff, films, whatever, a lot of times, the financing for those types of, small projects can be hard to get. So if you have a crowdfunding campaign to help you with that, that would be one way to kind of, work towards not only raising the capital, but including your community on this journey with you.
Yeah. Like Ethereum film.
Right.
It's like $2 million in 4 days.
Right.
And they sold the logo like as an NFT, as a non-fungible token as well, I think.
Yeah, and that's another market that's like blowing up in the last, 2020 blow ups, as we were talking about before. Yeah.
That's a multi-trillion-dollar market.
Yeah.
And it's like not just like a few trillion, it's in the tens of trillions, because
I believe it. Yeah.
It's saying what is valuable could be digitized. That Monopoly board could be valuable, right? Like somebody that made their own little bottle. If you buy, like, there's little like characters on there's an NFT metaverse project I'm working on. These things are selling for $300. These like game characters, like, I mean, but kids buy Fortnite skins. That's worth $50. That shirt that's on a character in like a computer.
You will never touch it, right? Yes.
But that is where I think the digital to physical redemptions is going to be crazy in the future. And that's what Boson Protocol is working on, the startup that I'm at.
Right.
Hey, you got your NFT, we both have our cool little jacket on, and then you could redeem this good that you buy in the digital world, in the physical world. And they're both like, it's like the worlds are merging. We already do Instagram and like Zoom, but it's kind of like lame, right? It's like 2D. But now it's like, oh, it's fully going to be immersive. It's fully going to be this real place, like Ready Player One. That's your homework. Go watch it this weekend. That's the world that I see, and I've been seeing for like a couple of years. So when I heard about this company and just like the metaverse, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like one of my
gotta get in on it.
Right? So, but yeah, what I guess last question.
Sure.
What is something about you? Like, what would you say is your life's work, and like why you exist? And then like, what's one thing that like people don't really know about you?
My life's work.
Why do you exist?
That's a good one. I don't know if I've really given that much thought to it. But I would say, at least in this chapter of my life, that I think that my calling is not only to be, I guess a lawyer or whatever, but I think to be the voice of practicality in spaces, and it's not just in the crypto space, right? It's in a variety of spaces. Just finance in general, I think, can be a little funky. But to be able to, be part of the conversation, but also bring something to the conversation. I think that one of my purposes, at least in this chapter of my life, is to be more than just, a face in the room. Because a lot of times that we, when we talk about diversity, inclusion, et cetera, we're like, oh, we need to just be in there. And I've been in there, and it's not that great. So I think it's more than just being in there, right? You can't be in there and be a fly on the wall, right? Because then you might as well not be in there. So at least right now, my purpose is to be in the room, but not be on a fly on the wall, to actually just
contributor.
share. Can be a contributor, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to give that question a little more thought. That should have been a question you like emailed to me earlier.
Yeah, that's our part two.
Right. That's part two. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, what was the second part of the question?
What was the second part of the question? I can't remember, I'll be honest. Sometimes
it was like,
they just come
okay.
out.
Okay. So I know it was like, what's my life's work? And yeah, I don't remember the second part. Sorry.
I really don't remember. This is gonna like kill me. Not really kill me, but what did I say? I don't know. But
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, one thing that some people don't really know about you.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. So one thing that people don't really know about me. I don't know. I feel like social media.
Like a hobby or a passion or something, like it's like not law or not like finance.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like social media makes people feel like they might know a lot about you already because I share, a good amount. One of my hobbies, and people don't believe me, but one of my hobbies is working out. It's like a hobby and a necessity at the same time. Most times it helps me like get myself together, start my day, etc. Or like if I'm having a bad day, sometimes I just need to go for a walk or run something quick and then just be able to do that. But I've run a few marathons. I used to do CrossFit. I kind of miss it, but so, I guess that's like, if I'm not reading or whatever, I'm probably working out or going to work out or in a workout outfit to make me feel like I should be working out or something like
Always
that.
ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. Yes.
I ran my first half marathon last weekend.
Where? They're doing halves now? Where?
I'm in Houston, so it's in
it's
in New Braunfels. It's like kind of central Texas.
Okay.
They're known for their rivers, and they have like a water park called Splitterbond. It's a very
How was it?
Area. It was awesome. It hurt, but it was great.
2 hours. Is it a hilly? Okay, that's good.
It was a little hilly.
Yeah. And that was your first one? That's great.
And I'm running my first marathon in September or October.
Okay. Where are you going to do it?
On the East Coast. Like I'll be on the East Coast, so probably like in like Connecticut or Rhode Island, somewhere weird. Because I'm actually running 50 marathons in 50 states. I'm raising $5 million for this special needs program called the Heart Program. We help adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities get them jobs and life training skills. So yeah.
Well, so you're going to do 50 marathons in how much time?
So it'll be over 5 years. So
okay. I was going to say
5.5. Yeah, I'm not that crazy. I'm just kind of crazy. So
yeah, that's still a lot because generally I just do one. Before all the craze of the pandemic, I would do one full marathon, and then you'll do the 10 milers, the 12 milers, the halves. Those kind of keep you in shape for the full. But if you're going to do several full a year, I mean, wow, that's awesome.
Dang, so you have to run one together.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do one on the East Coast, I think October is a nice time to run. I don't know what it's like in Rhode Island. I feel like it's really cold. But like October in like maybe the DC Marathon or the Chicago Marathon, or maybe Houston, like, weather-wise. But if that's where you're going to be, I mean, you let me know. We could talk about that offline.
We'll. How can people keep up with you, follow you, and see how you're changing the world?
So you can follow me at Crowdie Advisors on IG and Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a Crowdie Advisors YouTube page and crowdieadvisors.com.
Nice. Thanks, Maureen. This is awesome. This is dope.
Thank you.
On again to talk about more legal stuff, finance stuff, and nerd out about running.
Yes, I can always find a way to talk about that. Yes.
It's awesome. You have a great weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. And yeah.
So did I. All right. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Too.
All right. Bye.
Peace. That was a great episode, Maureen. put on a regulation lawyer financial clinic. I just love saying clinic. But anyways, that was awesome. Be able to follow her at Crowdie Advisors. You already know. I'm going to put it in the link below and for the podcast as well. Definitely share this with your family, your friends, on your social media platforms, because we're breaking into the future. Don't want you to get left behind. Don't want your people to get left behind. We're all going together. Let's get it. Love you guys. Let's go.